Hi everyone, this is Schumpeti here from EcoTales. In this video, I will cover some important theories of economic development. Note that this video will not cover the topics exhaustively. To dig deeper, resort to textbooks. Please treat this video as a supplementary resource. Among the various theories on economic development, we will study the classical theory, the Marxian theory, and the Schumpeterian theory. We will start with the classical theory of economic development. We first see the backdrop against which it was developed. It was developed alongside the emerging conditions brought about by the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain. It gives an account of the broad forces that influenced economic growth and development. The main objective of English classical economists like Adam Smith, Thomas Malthus, and David Ricardo was to understand and analyze the underlying economic forces that results in economic growth and development. The main features of the classical theory: the laissez-faire policy, existence of automatic free market and perfectly competitive economy was assumed, which is free from government interference. There is reliance on invisible hand mechanism. It is a self-interest that drives the economy. Capital accumulation is assumed to be the key to economic progress. Emphasis is on larger savings. However, it is assumed that only landlords and capitalists are capable of saving, as working class earn subsistence wage. Profits are the incentive to investment. Accumulation to induce investment in form of profit is the main driving force behind growth. However, there is a tendency of profit to decline. Profits decrease as competition increases for larger capital accumulation among capitalists. Finally, the stationary state assumption, which is the end process of capital accumulation, there is a tendency of the economy to revert back to this stationary state. The broad gist of the classical theory can be outlined as follows. Firstly, higher capital accumulation leads to unexpected increase in profits. This causes the real income to increase above the subsistence level, which in turn leads to population explosion. Due to population explosion, the demand for food increases. So, more labor and capital are employed in food production to meet the increased demand. However, since land is fixed and other factors are fixed, this leads to diminishing returns to land, which further causes the price of corn to rise, and along with that, rents and wages rises, and simultaneously profits and investment decreases. This causes the population growth to slow down. Thus, capital accumulation ceases, and finally, the stationary state sets in the economy. This simple classical theory has some major criticisms, which are as follows. Firstly, it ignores the middle class completely. Secondly, it ignores the role of public sector. It denies the existence of any public sector. Thirdly, technological progress is given very less importance for economic development. Fourthly, wrong notions of wages and profits are harbored throughout the theory. And finally, the growth process that is described is unrealistic growth process, which is far from reality. Next, we study the famous Marxian theory of economic development. Karl Marx was a German philosopher and economist, often epitomised as Marx the Prophet. He is undoubtedly one of the most popular faces in history. He contributed to the theory of economic development by putting forward a critical examination of the process of capitalist development, also by giving economic interpretation of history, and by providing an alternative path of planned economic development. Marx made certain assumptions in order to formulate his theory. His assumptions are as follows. He assumed that there are two principal classes in the society: the bourgeois class, that is the capitalists, the haves, the oppressors, and the proletariats, that is the workers, the have-nots, the oppressed. The wages of the workers are determined at a subsistence level of living. He assumed that labor is the main source of value generation in the economy. The factors of production are assumed to be owned by capitalists only. Capitalists exploit the workers. Labor is assumed to be homogeneous and perfectly mobile between sectors. National income is distributed in terms of wages and profits. In addition to providing a critical examination of the capitalist process of development, Marx also provided a materialistic interpretation of history. According to Marx, all the historical events are the result of continuous economic struggle between the different classes of the society. The main cause of the class struggle is the conflict between the mode of production and the relation of production. Mode of production is a particular arrangement of production in a society that determines the entire social, political, and religious way of living, whereas the relation of production relates to the class structure of the society. According to Marx, the stages of growth that a society follows are firstly the primitive communism, followed by slavery, followed by feudalism, then capitalism, and ultimately socialism. The theory of surplus value forms the basis of the Marxian analysis. Marx relied on labor theory of value for his economic analysis. According to him, labor alone, either in its present active state or in the form of dead labor, embodied in machines and other capitals, is the absolute and ultimate source of economic value. The theory of surplus value forms the basis of class struggle under capitalism. The surplus value arises because labor produces more economic value than the cost of labor himself. So there is wide disparity between the value of the total output and the value of the output the laborers receive. Exploitation exists because the workers fail to receive the whole value of total output, and the supply price of labor represents the surplus value which is expropriated by the capitalists. The ownership of instrument of production enables the capitalist to extract surplus value from labor by forcing them to work longer hours and receive subsistence wage. So the power of the capitalist persists due to the ownership of the instruments of production, which enables them to extract the surplus value from workers. According to Marx, it is this surplus value that leads to capital accumulation and thus swelling profits. Marx broadly defined capital in two categories: constant capital, given by small c, that is a capital invested in stocks or raw materials or equipment which directly assists the productivity of labor. He also defined variable capital as the capital devoted to the purchase of labor power in the form of wages or direct subsistence. The total value of a product, capital V, is given by constant capital plus variable capital plus small s, which is the surplus value. He also introduced a new concept called the organic composition of capital, which is the ratio of the constant capital to the total capital. The rate of exploitation E in Marxian theory is given by the ratio of surplus value to the variable capital. The rate of profit according to Marx is given by the ratio of surplus value divided by constant capital plus variable capital. The production process as developed by Marx leads to three types of crises that eventually brings about the downfall of capitalism. Firstly, falling rate of profit. Organic composition of capital increases due to the increase in constant capital because of reinvestment of surplus value and technological progress. It is assumed that the surplus value that is expropriated by the capitalists is reinvested to create constant capital. As constant capital increases, profit decreases. Profits must decrease as surplus value is reinvested by capitalists for increasing the level of constant capital. This is a fundamental behavioral assumption in Marxist analysis. Next, we have the realization crisis, which occurs also due to the increase in organic composition of capital. Employment of more constant capital leads to the technological unemployment of labor. The exchange value of a worker's only commodity, labor, decreases as the industrial reserve army increases. Capitalists cannot realize surplus value any longer as consumer market is full of unemployed laborers. Finally, there is disproportionality crisis. The capital goods sector is also affected by the realization crisis because demand for capital goods in the bankrupt consumer goods sector no longer exists. This relationship is called disproportionality crisis because it describes how two interrelated sectors cannot grow at different rates. Some major criticisms of the Marxian theory are as follows. It uses the labor theory of value as its basis for analysis. It is widely debated that capital, like labor, is a productive factor. However, in Marxian analysis, only labor is considered to be the productive factor. Falling rate of profit with a stable organic composition of capital is not a realistic picture. Technical progress generally increases employment, that has been seen empirically. Finally, the Marxian analysis is a static analysis. Next, we move on to the Schumpeter's theory of economic development. Joseph Schumpeter was an Austrian political economist. He was one of the most influential economists of 20th century. In his theory, he assigns the highest importance to the role of entrepreneurs and the innovations introduced by them in the process of economic development. He assumes a perfectly competitive economy in stationary equilibrium, that is, an economy which is perfectly competitive with no profits, interest, savings, investment, and involuntary unemployment. Nature of equilibrium state and innovation in this analysis. Schumpeter considered the equilibrium is characterized by circular flow, which repeats itself in the same manner every year. According to Schumpeter, development is spontaneous and discontinuous change in the channels of circular flow. Disturbance of equilibrium, which forever alters and displaces the equilibrium state previously existing. So, a stationary state can be altered as new combinations of innovation arises. A innovation may consist of the following forms: the introduction of a new product, the introduction of a new method of production, the opening up of new market, the conquest of a new source of supply of raw materials, the carrying out of new organization of any industry, like the creation of monopoly. The economic model. The role of innovation in this analysis is given to entrepreneurs who directs the use of funds to create something new. The entrepreneurs have the ability to break the circular flow by creating some new products. To do so, he requires existence of technical knowledge and credit. It is assumed that a reservoir of untapped technical knowledge already exists in the economy. So, what the entrepreneurs require is credit, which they take from banks. Now, the circular flow is broken up with an innovation in the form of a new product. Once the new product becomes successful, other entrepreneurs follow. The investment is financed by bank credit, which increases the general level of income and prices in the economy. This causes a cumulative expansion throughout the economy. With increasing purchase power, demand for all industry production increases. So in turn, prices and profits in the economy increases. All industries expand by borrowing from the banks. This also induces a secondary wave of credit inflation which is superimposed on the primary wave. So the economy grows by leaps and bounds. Over optimism and speculation further add to this boom. After a period of gestation, new product displaces the old one as the demand for new products increases and the demand for old product decreases. This causes the overall output in the economy to contract and some firms even run into liquidation. Innovators repay back the loans to banks and this causes the overall money and prices in the economy to fall. Schumpeter believed in the existence of long wave of upswings and downswings in the economy. Upswing is ushered in by innovation, after which downswings begin and the painful process of adjustment starts. Natural forces of recovery starts to operate and finally equilibrium in the economy is restored. Schumpeter describes the process of capitalist development as one of creative destruction, wherein old economic structures and shackles of the economy are being completely destroyed and displaced by the new structures. In the adjacent diagram, we see how a secondary wave is superimposed on the primary wave, and initially the economy goes through a period of boom, after which it suffers a period of depression, and finally the natural forces operate and the economy sets into the path of revival. Future of capitalism in Schumpeterian analysis. In this analysis, entrepreneurs are the key figure. So, according to Schumpeter, capitalism can maintain itself as long as entrepreneurs behave like knights and pioneers. But such daring entrepreneurs are being destroyed by the capitalist system itself. The three major forces, according to Schumpeter, that are bringing about the death of capitalism are the decadence of entrepreneurial function, the disintegration of the bourgeois family, and finally the destruction of institutional framework of capitalist society. Some major criticisms of the Schumpeterian analysis are as follows. The process of transition from capitalism to socialism that is described in this theory is not correct. Too much importance is given to bank credit. The downswings and upswings are not essential for economic development. Economic development not only depends on innovations but also on economic and social changes. Finally, it is also not correct to assume that cyclical changes are due to innovations only. So, in this video, we learned about the different theories of economic development, namely the classical theory of economic development, the Marxian theory, and finally the Schumpeterian theory. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to EcoTales for more updates. Feel free to give any suggestions or queries. Thank you.